So all these negative stories swirl around Donald Trump. Joining us now from Dallas to respond is campaign spokeswoman Katrina Pearson. And Katrina, do you believe the media are now pushing a narrative, pushing a theme that Donald Trump is hostile to women?
You know what, Howie, absolutely. But I think we've always known, particularly as Republicans, going up against the assumed nominee on the Democrat side, Hillary Clinton, this is exactly the narrative they were going to try to push regardless. And I think they're starting early because they do know that Mr. Trump is on a trajectory to win the nomination, despite what everyone's saying in D.C. and in the Beltway about receiving the delegates. Mr. Trump's support is committed at about 80% now, and if he just maintains his current support moving forward, he will lock up the nomination before the convention.
Okay, but do you see this as sort of bias against the Republican, or do you see a particular effort by the press to sort of slow Trump down or take him down after 8 months of pretty contentious relationships, contentious relations between Donald Trump and the media?
Well, there is definitely a huge media bias here, and it's actually the Republican establishment and the hashtag Never Trump folks who are actually helping the media in this process, not understanding that the same thing is going to happen no matter who the Republican nominee is. But just to give you an example, we have seen questions asked to Republican candidates that are never asked to Democrat candidates. For example, in the Chris Matthews interview, when was the last time someone sat Hillary Clinton down and asked her about hypothetical positions on particular states of abortion? You just don't see that. But on top of that, you do see, go ahead.
Speaking of that interview, since you brought it up, Trump now says, you now say, that he misspoke when he answered the hypothetical question, if abortion were illegal, should women be punished? And then, of course, the campaign clarified that. Do you think the press is refusing to accept the clarification and keeps just sort of repeating what he said?
There's absolutely no question, but I think it's a little bit worse than that, Howie, because they're not even discussing the context of this question because it was hypothetical. Abortion is legal in this country, and that's not the context that it was being discussed in. And I've seen on other networks, CNN and MSNBC specifically, when they're talking about this, or even in the headlines, they're saying that Mr. Trump said in the interview that he just wanted women to be punished for just an abortion, period. So the entire context is being left out. They're reporting that Mr. Trump called for a ban on abortion.
At the same time, Donald Trump has said a couple of times now that this was a convoluted exchange with Matthews, fair enough, but that MSNBC cut out part of it. And MSNBC is absolutely not true that this aired, the exchange at least aired just as it happened.
Well, yes, the portions that we're talking about being cut, and you can go check the tapes, whether it's MSNBC or CNN for that matter, is the actual reporting of that interview, not the interview itself, because they are cutting out the context of the proposed hypothetical ban on abortion, and that's the part that they're running. They're not running the entire context. They've cut it out to make it look like Donald Trump just simply wanted to punish women for an abortion, and that's just not the case.
I see. So it's the later reporting on it, not the interview itself. Just briefly on the dust-up between Corey Lewandowski and Michelle Fields, regardless of who's right and wrong, would it have been better if Trump in particular were more gracious toward a reporter who felt aggrieved over this incident?
You know, I'm not really sure. We can say that in hindsight, but I also know that this is another anti-Trump group that pushed this narrative on Twitter. You know, we have to remind people that this is not something that happened and was immediately reported. This took days after a discussion and after a narrative was created on Twitter for this woman to go and file charges against the campaign manager. So this is just another orchestrated attack to try to continue to push that narrative.
Kat, I've got about half a minute. What about the notion that at a time when Donald Trump had this big lead and should be trying to unify the party, that he keeps punching or counter-punching, as he would say, using Twitter and still sort of trafficking in the kind of insults that one might say got him to where he is, but maybe is not the right tone for somebody who is the Republican frontrunner?
Well, Mr. Trump is Mr. Trump. He's not politically correct, and it is one of the biggest drivers of the campaign. He does call it like he sees it, and you know, I think moving forward, he's going to continue to make those decisions. But at the same time, you know, he's been attacked from 16 sides of Sunday, and from the media, from the opposition, you name it, Howie. He is fighting back against everyone. So to sit back and assume that the campaign, is supposed to take incoming from all sides and not respond, that's just not going to happen.
Well, I certainly wasn't suggesting that. Good to see you this Sunday. Katrina Pearson, thanks very much for joining us.